September. The theme that we've chosen is how being ace in school affects us. So first I'm going to talk about sex ed and ace. Then I'm going to talk about how it feels to be ace in school. And then I'm going to talk about kind of the talk around being ace in school. Okay, so sex ed and ace. In my experience, there was no talk of asexuality in sex ed that we had in grade 9 health class. It was definitely more focused on female and male relationships, and whether that be sexual or platonic or familial, meaning like family relationships. It was definitely more focused on male and female interactions in regards to sexual or platonic relationships. There were different contraceptives, so I know for the male class, the male sex education class, they were taught how to use a condom properly. The female sex ed class was not. We were shown all the different contraceptives, which they said it was all of them. Definitely was not all of them. There were some major ones that they had actually left out that I found out about later on. So they showed us all the different contraceptives, all of them. But for penis and vagina sex. So they didn't teach us how to turn a condom into a dental dam, and they didn't show us a dental dam. They didn't say that dental dams existed. So that was something that I had to learn about later on that definitely could have been useful in grade 9, not that I would need to know it, but something that I would have appreciated. Little to no talk about different kinds of sex. So they briefly explained that there was such a thing called anal sex and there's such a thing called oral sex, but they didn't go in depth in how to be safe. And then when at summer camp, I learned that you have to change a condom approximately every 15-20 minutes to reduce breakage and just keep it clean. So that was something that they could have explained, like that's definitely something that should be in the sex ed, in my opinion. It kind of made me feel uncomfortable because it was focused on the fact that, you know, sex is for happy married couples, or sex is for a man and a wife who are going to devote their lives together for, or sex is when you want children. And being someone that identifies within the ace community, it makes you feel uncomfortable because you feel like there's no room for your happiness, because in order to have a happy marriage, you have to have sex at some point. So I know in past relationships for me that's really affected me and put a strain on my partner and I, because that was something that I was concerned that he wouldn't love me like 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now because I wouldn't have sex with him. So that was definitely something that was always back in the back of my mind when I was with him, and really puts a strain on a relationship because you're taught so much that happy relationship means having sex and having children, And when that's not something that you want, it makes you feel like you don't belong in a relationship. So on to talk of feeling ace in school. So most people that I know are pretty cool with it. To be fair, that's my GSA, my Gay Straight Alliance, so that's not the most close-minded group. There are only a few people that actually know all of my labels. I know there are quite a few that this upcoming Thursday we have our GSA, our first actual GSA meeting of the school year, and I will have to, we always do introductions at the beginning of the year because things change, and this year I'm going to have to say when we introduce ourselves my pronouns and my preferred name, because my preferred name has changed with my pronouns changing, and that's something that I'm very apprehensive about, hesitant about. Not that I think that they won't accept me, but more that it's just a piece of me that I haven't shared with them yet, and that I've just found out about myself, so that's very difficult. But on the topic of being ace, when I came out to them as being within the ace community, that was something that they just asked a lot of questions about. They knew what asexuality was, but they didn't know all of these subcategories like autocorosexuality and demisexuality. So whenever we get a new member, I always have to go into this big speech about explaining what the difference is and how it's different from just stereotypical straight people experience sexual attraction. So there's more into explaining it, is that makes sense. There's more to explaining it than there is people being rude about it. And there are only a few people that are outside of my GSA that know, and they just kind of don't get it. They don't care that I'm ace or I'm whatever. They only know that I'm in the ace community. They don't know anything else. They don't know my specifics within the ace community. They just know I'm ace. But there are a few people that come to mind when I think of that, that know that they don't really care, but they're just really confused about it, because to them it's, how can you not feel that? So they're not really being rude about it, they're just confused. So it's times like those you just kind of have to explain, and it gets a little bit annoying when you have to explain it to everybody. So I tend to just not tell people unless they ask, or unless it's someone that I've known for a long time that I have to tell, for example my GSA or family members that I choose to tell. On to talk of ace in school. So it's not really talked about. Long story short, it's not really talked about. If it is, it's in passing, or it's, oh, did you hear about this, blah 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 blah. So it's not anything really bad, and I know that there was one time after something happened within the LGBTQ plus community, and we were all feeling very put down and suppressed, and I kind of opened up a bit to people in the GSA about feeling that suppression to a further extent than someone that may be gay or lesbian or bi or trans, and I'm not discrediting their suppression at all, but those are things that are very much talked about now in the news. So although they are suppressed, a lot of people know what those words mean to some extent. But asexuality isn't talked about in the news. It's not something that people care about, especially in a day and age where our media is just constantly bombarding us with sex, sex, sex. You have to have sex to be happy. Oh, look at this condom. It makes you feel the most you can. And it's just a lot for someone that's in the ace community to feel. And I'm lucky that I have that support group that I can talk to them about that. But I know it was definitely, the talk in school about ACE is just not there. And I think for the time being, that's actually a good thing. I think there's a lot of change that's happening within even the last 50 years, let alone the last 100, 150, 200 years. So I think people need time, and I'm fine with that. If they need time to figure out how they cannot be assholes about it, then okay, don't talk to me until you figure it out. Because I'm not taking shit from anybody, because I'm me, so you gotta just let me be me. Okay, let us know down in the comments below your stories about being ace in school and how that made you feel, or anyone in the LGBTQ plus community, how that feels in your different subcategories. And just hopefully everyone's having a good time being back at school.